Hello, YouTube. It's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called Who Needs Passport Bros? Y'all divest because we don't want y'all. We created y'all, says Humpty Dumpty shaped woman. And the way this video came about was I was watching Brazil Yesh's channel, and shout out to Brazil Yesh. Please subscribe to his channel if you have not. I'll leave his link to his channel in the description. But anyway, the video was showing an overweight woman who was complaining about the passport bros. She had several complaints, and her main complaint was, um, well, anyway, she felt that a lot of the passport bros, the reason we're leaving America and that kind of thing is because the women in America, they didn't want us, and as a result, we were created. And so in a sense, what she's trying to say is that we kind of owe our creation of our movement to her, well, to women like her in general. They actually created us. And also in addition to that, she was saying that our issue is that we want a woman who is in desperate need of us. Instead of looking for women that actually want us, we want women who need us. And she's saying that a lot of women in America actually do want men, but they just don't need men. And so I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit and kind of debunk some of the stuff she was saying and get, tell my give my opinion on my side of the whole situation as well. Okay, so starting off, first off, she did not create passport bros. I'm even willing to go a step further and say that American women in general didn't necessarily create passport bros either. And I say that because on Pablo Frescobar's channel, he showed a Jet magazine article back in, I want to say, like the 1940s or something like that. And it was actually showing men in the service dating like Japanese women and that kind of thing. You also got to consider that a lot of American men in general, of all colors, white, black, that kind of thing, they were already going overseas. Like a lot of them have been in the military, the army, that kind of thing. And so they were already stationed in different countries. So the passport bro thing had been going on for a while. It just, during that time, of course, we didn't have internet. It wasn't as publicized, but that movement was already there. And in many cases, it wasn't even necessarily because American women were like out of control or that kind of thing. It's just that, a lot of times people date who they're around, and a lot of us, being in the service, that kind of thing, they were overseas, they were dating women over there. And I'm sure sometimes when they got back, they did like a comparison here or there. But also consider that in the early, I believe feminism didn't start up until, I want to say, the mid of century, like the mid of the century. So before then, there were still passport bros, and there wasn't a huge outcry of like feminism. In fact, I think especially on the black women's side as well, a lot of them didn't really join till I think around like the 60s or something like that. But even like with white women, I don't think it was huge in the early part of the century. So what I'm trying to say is that you still had a big element of feminine traditional women in the first half and even before then, as far as like the century. So a lot of men in general didn't really have that big of a deal as far as like finding women, dating women, that kind of thing. And if you think about it, it's a lot of times whenever I'm watching some of these channels like Fox News, like here's like, I don't really watch Fox News, but I watch a variety of different channels. But I did notice that like a lot of Republican men in general, they kind of talk about how things were back in the 50s and how it was so great, how the women were feminine. And I just brought it up just to say that it wasn't that bad back. And then also consider that a lot of times the women didn't really work. You can get by on one income. So a lot of times the men, they would come home from work and then the woman would be there and then she'd be like cleaning and cooking. And so in many cases, it wasn't almost like that big of a need for like passport bros. Now, again, that article that Pablo showed, I believe like the 1940s, whatever, when it showed like the servicemen dating like the Japanese women. Of course, I'm sure there was going to be talks about men who were dating Japanese women. They would come back and say, "Oh, the women there, very submissive, they're easy to go along with." And I believe the article they showed was asking, "Do Japanese women make better wives than like like American women and that kind of thing?" Um, so keep that in mind, and then also remember back then, things were still very like segregated. Everybody kind of kept to themselves. A lot of times, people would still like date people within their circles, and both I'm talking about like across the board, like in white culture, black culture, that kind of thing. So back then, and also like, again, there is no internet, there's no Instagram, you don't have cell phones. Cold approach worked very well. You can cold approach women, get to know them, that kind of thing. And again, as people have said as well, because there was no Instagram, the women generally dated the men within like their own city or segment, and they had to kind of just work with those men there. So in many cases, there really was no need for like a huge passport bro wing, uh passport bros movement during that time. Though there was some men already doing it. So I said it to say that that they didn't really create the whole thing about men dating overseas and the male order bride thing. That was already kind of there. I just think that feminism springboarded it. So I would say that if she wants to say they maybe like sped it up the process or something like that, or even gave additional reasoning why men would want to do that, she can probably say that. But to say that she started the whole movement of men dating women overseas, or like even the mail order bride thing, that was already there. That was going to be there with or without her there. I mean, it was men still traveling and that kind of thing. And all this did was just give men even more incentive to do that. And then especially when they, and in many cases, I kind of think that the first wave of feminism, most men don't really have an issue with when it comes to things just like humanitarian things, like just allowing her to work, um, you know, just like little stuff like that. I don't think most men have a problem with that. If you think about like a woman who becomes a single mother, she needs to fend for her children. Maybe the man died or something like that. She needs to have a job. She needs to have good pay. Okay, that's fine. That's not what most men are upset about. It's this other wave of feminism when women are pretty much want the same benefits of being a traditional woman without being a traditional woman, and in many cases, putting laws in place from the court system to pretty much incentivize women to divorce men. Things from just the way that child support system works. You got uh, for example, I believe I want to say Kanye West. He got recently divorced, and I think he has to pay Kim Kardashian maybe almost like 200, it's like an insane amount per month, and she's still saying that's not enough. Men are upset about stuff like that. I don't think most men don't care about. Oh, I want to work at Subway just like you work at Subway. Well, go ahead. I mean, we tried to cover you for that, but if you want to go without your cover and work at Subway, or like your customer service job, or like a little government job or something like that, that's fine. I mean, most men, I mean, again, we wanted to give you the a easy load, but if you say you still want to work, and in many cases, as I said before, if a woman becomes widowed, she has kid, okay, we understand that. That's not so much the issue. It's more so this second, third, fourth wave of feminism that really caused the issue, which really springboarded the movement. So that's that about as far as how it was overall created. I'm gonna say that, and I'm sure people who's listening leave some comments as well. I'm sure you have a lot of information about this, subject as well, which is fine. I'm interested to hear you guys comments and that kind of thing. So that's that. So now let's go more into like the meat of the other things she was saying. The main focus she talked about. She talked about us divesting, and she said it's because women no longer need men. But she was trying to say that we shouldn't be offended by women in the United States not needing men, because she was saying that women still want men. So since they still want us, we shouldn't take it upon ourselves we shouldn't just leave, for the most part, what she's saying. She pretty much trying to say it's a twisted thing for us to want a woman that needs us, but instead we should go after women who want us. And the issue with, I mean, the main issue with that is very obvious. So here's the thing: all we have to do is ask her, okay, what type of man do women want? What type of man do women want? And this goes into red pill. And unfortunately, it's that top 20% of men. Top 20% of men, men who are 6 feet tall, got a six pack, over six figures. It's a very small, minute group of men. So for her to say you should just become, in other words, what she's trying to almost get into is that we should kind of go back to the self-improvement type of mentality that a lot of dating coaches have been talking about. And that's pretty much the way to go. It just doesn't work. It's not practical. And even like the high value male type of thing, I believe Pablo had talked about this as well, where like it's only a small selection of men. And I think it's very impractical to think that all men in the country are going to suddenly make over 6 figures or make over 6 figures. It's just not going to happen. With inflation, we're now about to be in a recession. It's just not going to. I mean, it has never happened where that many amount of men have made over 6 figures. So what happens to the men who don't make 6 figures? What happens to them? Oh, and what about the men who make 6 figures but they're not 6 feet tall? What happens to them? Oh, what about the men who are 6 feet tall and make 6 figures but they don't have a six pack? Man, like maybe they have a gut. What happens to those men? And just like Fresh and Fit has shown, when women really did the calculation, they almost pretty much priced themselves out of the market. So that's the problem with the whole one type thing. In addition to that, as I said before, Instagram, social media has really exasperated this whole situation because again, you have these. I guess you can call them high value man, like like Drake, Kanye West, these rappers and stuff. While the woman is posting her pictures on IG, these high value men or whatever will dip into her comments, make a comment. And because they did that, she now thinks she's on that guy's level. He's going to be dating her when we all know at the end of the day, he just wants to kind of hit that and go about his business. But she would swear up and down that that's what type of man she's supposed to get. The problem is she'll hold out waiting on this man, sometimes having babies by this man, all the way up into her late 30s, early 40s. By that time, most of the men we really can't do anything with them. And then plus, as we said before, she's out of body doesn't look the same. You at an age now as far as childbearing where it's going to be kind of a risk. It just doesn't work. The whole thing of just become the man that women want. You don't have to go overseas. That model just does not work at all. As TD Jakes said, he said that men need somebody that they can pour something into. We're fixers. We want to feel, not just wanted, we want to feel essential. We want to feel essential part of the family. We want to come in and be the hero. The women want to be masculine. They don't give us the opportunity to really look after them and cover them like we would like to. The thing is, when you go overseas, men, we're builders. There's more opportunity to build with a woman. There's more opportunity to build with a woman because the infrastructure there, the way that the job market and the governments work there, for most part, in many cases, especially like in Brazil or Colombia, the government makes you fend for yourself for the most part. If you just, for whatever reason, messed around a bunch of men, you got a bunch of children, it's kind of almost like tough luck. It's going to be very difficult to get any type of support. Even the little support you have won't be enough. Plenty of senior citizens you'll find that don't have like shelter. As I said before, most of their economy there is like informal, which means it's things like Uber, delivery drivers, like the street vendors. There's no guarantee of income, and in many cases, because they travel around the whole country, they're not really paying into like they're not really paying taxes for the most part. So they're not really getting pensions and that kind of thing. So a lot of times people have to depend on one another. They have to work together. Better way to put it is this: in America, most people don't need anybody. So when she says, I don't need a man, keep in mind that that same woman technically doesn't need her mother. She technically doesn't need her father. She technically doesn't need her sister, her brother. She technically doesn't need anybody because the government is there at her every whim. For example, let's just say, like, I don't know, maybe she was staying with her mother or something like that. Mother cussed her out. She has a kid. Government provide a place for her and her kid. They have shelters, food stamps. As I said before, you got the little food kitchens. Uh, you got like public housing. So in many cases, if you think about it, the way the USA has so many programs that in many cases, not just women, even men, if you think about it logically, you don't even really need your family to some degree. Because you have things like, of course, you have like Social Security, you have like the unemployment, you have, like I said before, public housing, shelters, food stamps. You have the government will provide you to be able to go to school. Provide you all types of loans. Um, and I said it to say that most people want, keyword is want, to be with their family, but technically, because there's so much money and programs, in many cases, what can you, I mean, everything that a family member, somebody that's close to you will want to do for you, there's some type of program there. Even as far as like emotional support, a lot of women have enough money where they can just go to like a therapist or somebody like that, where they can kind of, and plus with enough simps, they can just go to those people, get enough emotional support. They don't really need each other for the most part. Versus when you go to a country, like I said before, like Colombia, a majority of those programs aren't there. In many cases, because you're not paying taxes, you won't have access to those programs anyway. And again, even the people who do work, again, they make less than about, I think the average was between like $250 to $500 a month. Most people have to live with family members to survive, which means you can't say to your family member, your brother, your sister, your mother, your aunt, I don't need you. You need each other to survive. Otherwise, you will live on the street. In addition to that, if you have a child with somebody in one of these countries, again, in many cases, when you talk about a lot of the women who work like in the red light district, and even like the drug dealers there, as far as like the man side, the reason a lot of people are involved in drugs, and reason why a lot of women are involved into like the red light district areas, is because it's very, very, the inflation is very high there. And as I said before, many of the jobs there don't really um pay that much. Sometimes people working only making like $8 a day, stuff like that. So you're only making like $8 a day. And again, you may say, well, I can get an apartment for like $200 a month, but keep in mind, you got to think about the area you're gonna be living in. I mean, some of these areas are not heavily, they don't have lots of police presence there. Police in some cases are very much useless. Police a lot of times try to pat people down for money. What's the word? Extort people. So a lot of times, even the poor people don't work with the police. Now, if you don't work with the police, who's going to defend you? You got to defend yourself, which is why you need your brothers, you need your fathers, you need your family. People need people in these countries. You need people to survive. You don't have that problem in the United States, because although I do have issue with the way our police are, but I can assure you something, that our police are more efficient, in my opinion, than most countries in the world. Our police officers are some of the most efficient people in the world. Something happened to you, some type of crime happened to you in Colombia, you better hope somebody saw. You better hope it was on video. And even then, it still might not go to court. They might still just give them a slap on the wrist, which is why a lot of people there do like their own social justice, almost like in a vigilante way. For example, a lot of times you'll hear that because petty theft there is so high in some cases, if a petty theft is like, if somebody sees somebody trying to pickpocket somebody, let's say like you're walking down the street, you look over, and this guy snatches somebody's purse, and let's say like the guy's running, he falls down. A group of the people there, I'm talking about regular random people, will walk up on that guy and literally beat him down. They despise thieves there. They despise thieves there. The reason for that is because many cases, even if you go to the police, it's going to be very unlikely they're going to go to jail. They're going to face any type of charges. The police there, as I told you before, they're kind of useless. So a lot of times people have to get their own types of justice there, which makes it a little bit more dangerous. Because it's more dangerous, you of course are going to depend, who's going to protect you? Your family, your cousins. In this case, for the women, your brothers, your uncles, your husband. So you better have a husband or boyfriend in this type of country, because if you don't, you think you're going to defend yourself against some of these Hispanic men. These are not small men. Some of them are smaller, but you see some very muscular, very tall, and you're not going to go fisticuffs with some of these men. I can assure you that. I can assure you that. On top of that, and I told you, and after some of those guys, I hate to say it, go fisticuffs with some of the women, a lot of them are not going to jail, which is why you will hear stories about not just men in South America, but men in Africa, also men in Russia. You will hear that in some cases, domestic abuse. You'll hear about plenty of stories about that, in which the man did horrendous crimes to their wives, girlfriends. Nothing happened to them. For example, there was a guy in China. His wife tried to leave him. The guy tracked her down. He bashed her eyes in. he did not go to jail. This was in China. Stuff like that. When you live like that, I assure you that woman, now I don't know her situation. I don't know if she had brothers, cousins, uncles, but if you know that, but if you lived in that country and you knew that guys can get away with something like that, I assure you, your whole view of how you move and about being covered, about needing men, your whole view would change. Your whole view would change. You would not be talking about I don't need any man. You will need a man in a situation like that. So, yeah. Then, she went on to say that okay, well, you men are talking about needing you for protection, but who are you protecting us from? Protecting us from other men. So at the end of the day, see, it's still you men. You are the problem. The problem with that is this. Okay, so you want to condemn us for the state of being in a position where you need protection, but do you give us thanks for being in a position where you can have these opportunities that you have if you think about all the wars that men have fought to keep this country safe? If you think about all the men have built who have built up this government, in many cases, a lot of women working in the government sector, men have built that up for you to work that. So you welcome for that. You want to talk about creation? We've created an environment where you feel so safe that you don't need men. We created that. Men have created that. Keep that in mind. You may have contributed here or there, but the same can be said about the lack of protection. There are women robbing people every day as well. There are women drugging men, doing all types of crime that you yourself also need protection from. Women shoot. I mean, women. I believe it was a story way back where a road rage situation where a guy got out of the car to approach a woman. She took a gun out and shot him. So there are women doing a lot of crimes as well. It's not just men. So you also need protection for some of these loony women as well. So why you can say maybe you contributed to building up this country, but you also have contributed to the situation where we need protections as well. So you can miss me with that whole thing about men are creating a problem, which, in other words, we created a problem which we put them in a position where they need us or something like that. But we also put you in a position where you don't need us as well. So you can't have it both ways. I mean, because at the end of the day, we've also created an environment which you are thriving in. So, you got to take what comes with that. I mean, but if you can show us a nation where women themselves just built it along and you want to go there, then go ahead and go there. But you can't just sit around and say that at the end of the day, men are still the problem. It doesn't even make sense. So getting back to my point, I told you the reason why in a lot of these countries there is a big need for family. There's a big need for significant others. And again, if you don't have a 401k or paying into pension, if you're not really paying into a pension, as I told you before, in most of these countries, the informal sector of the economy, which does not guarantee pay and also is not really contributing to tax benefit, if that's your way of living, you're going to need somebody to take care of you when you get older. So you're going to need children, which still comes back to having a family. So those women understand the importance of having family. So they need men, they need husbands. What happens is the passport bros, we kind of help them in a sense because we go to these countries and that adds to the pool of men that these women can date. They're looking for men too that can kind of take care of them and have enough to provide for them and a family and yeah, so that's one of the reasons they want us there. And also keep in mind, one of a Filipina woman made this up as well. She said that some of the men in her country didn't want her because she had curly hair. And I said it to say sometimes in some of these countries, there are certain characteristics that these women have that we as passport bros, we don't mind, but the men in their countries don't necessarily care for those women. Those women still need husbands. They still need significant others. So when we come there, they're happy to see us because they give us some more opportunity to find a mate. So some of the men actually are happy that we come there and take some of these women off their hands, especially some of their fathers, that kind of thing. And also keep in mind that a lot of times the fathers, the brothers, they're taking care of their daughters, their sisters, that kind of thing. So they're happy to see passport bros come there and marry their daughters, marry their daughters, marry their cousins, marry their sisters. Kind of helps them there. So helps out the family. One less thing for them to stress about. So it's a win-win for both parties. So yeah, that's my whole take on this whole thing. I'm gonna once again I'm gonna leave a link in the description to yeah. I'm gonna leave a link to the video that I was talking about that was found on Brazil Yesh's channel. Please also, when you go there and check it out, subscribe to his channel. He's an excellent content creator. And on that note, I'm gonna kind of end things. But please tell me what you think in the comments section about this whole ordeal about women. We should want women to want us versus needing us, and also the whole concept of women creating us for the most part, almost, for the most part, like I guess, I don't know if she's saying we owe them or something like that. But either way, tell me what you think in the comments. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not. That's I want to try to grow this channel, and hit the notification bell so you can know when I have new videos coming out. Um, hit the likes, helps the algorithm. I definitely appreciate it. And until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.